without
Yes.
the mic? Okay, so just give me, the ear sign if I need to get back on the mic. Sometimes I'm a little talker. So let's go ahead and move on with early entrepreneurs of Desert Hot Springs. I looked up, will you go ahead and change the slide? And I like to report on the early businessmen. Today it's businessmen. Next season it'll be the women entrepreneurs. But I want to just talk a little bit about LW Coffee, Two Bunch Palms, Dr. Robert Bingham, and early Bee Bar Ranch. And then Irene will talk to you about tidbits on Cabot Yerxa, who is also an entrepreneur of Desert Hot Springs. And then we're going to find out what 10 magical life story questions are for your next oral history for your family. So let's go ahead and move on. So here's the agenda today. What I'm going to talk about, what Irene will go into, and what Nicole will go into. Thanks for your patience. Okay, let's start out with what was happening in 1940 here and all around the world. So Woody Guthrie wrote "This Land Is Your Land," and I've got a little clip from one of his original recordings. John Steinbeck won a Pulitzer Prize for The Grapes of Wrath. You want me to play it? Yeah, play. You play while I talk. Okay. Remember Pinocchio? Pinocchio was released that year as Walt Disney's second feature-length film. And Tom Jerry premiered on MGM. So getting back to the 1940s and what was going on at that time.
The New York Island,
Yep.
from the Redwood Forest,
Okay, so we can turn off Woody. And there's a little bit of Woody in the Dylan movie, so that's out now. So if you haven't seen the Bob Dylan movie and you want to hear a little bit about Woody Guthrie and how he inspired Bob Dylan, you should take a look. Also during 1940, can you hear me? Also during 1940, the annual wage for men was $956, annual wage for women $592 a year. It was the beginning of World War II, sadly, and some inventions were happening because of that World War. Did you know that silly putty was created as part of research into a rubber substitute? The Jeep came about for military use, and duct tape, which also originally was DUCK tape, was invented in case you needed to waterproof your ammo box. So a lot of things were happening. Meanwhile, things were going on throughout the valley, and because I've taught history of Coachella Valley, I'm going to bring in a little bit of information on what I know that was going on around the rest of the valley. So, in Palm Desert, the Bergens, Walter Bergen, he had a ranch there. He was inviting his friends, who happened to be the Henderson brothers from LA, out to the desert. And from that gathering, the Palm Desert Corporation was born. So, moving up to Desert Hot Springs. Before we get started, I want to remind you that the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the entrepreneur as one who organizes, manages, and assumes the risks of a business or enterprise. And I know there are a couple people in this audience, including the Bowmans, that know exactly what that means. Moving on. So our go-getters for Desert Hot Springs. LW Coffee. So he was a Los Angeles businessman. In the 1940s, he formed a profitable trust for the development of subdivisions that he had planned for Desert Hot Springs. In 1941, the town was formed by LW Coffee. And his original town site was centered at the intersection of Palm Drive and Pearson. It was only 1 square mile. Why did Coffee choose Desert Hot Springs? Due to the natural hot springs that were here. So in 1932, and the connections abound. So in 1932, Cabot Yerxa had a grocery store in Moore Park. LW Coffee met him and found out about the desert. That happened quite a bit. There's also a grocer
in Palm Desert that had another grocery store in Moore Park. So the connections from the desert and out to others abounds. There's a wonderful publication. We sell it for $5 here. It's called Desert Hot Springs Why, and it's all about LW coffee. We have that here today. So 1933, he drills for water and he builds his trust. And most of the properties out here start with drilling for water. That's kind of the first step. Coffee, in 1938, Coffee had built his first bathhouse on Palm and Pearson. So I just put in a couple of stories that he talked about. You know, the entrepreneurs always go back to their trials and tribulations of their very first beginnings. They installed an electric light plant. They had an old Studebaker engine running it. They had lights for the adobe, and it was just barely enough. So he added a butane gas range so he could begin serving meals. He applied for his beer and wine license. He said it wasn't hard to get to at that time. There weren't enough hotel rooms for the people to stay at, so most of the time they slept in their cars and camped out and came in to use the waters. So all the while, Cabot Yerxa in 37 is returning to Desert Hot Springs. He builds his Pueblo in 1939 and continues working on it until his death in 1965. So we have all these people that are hanging out in the town of Desert Hot Springs. There was only one cafe at that time, and there were 22 residents of Desert Hot Springs when Coffee opened up. Also at that time, a lot of firsts happening for our city. The first newspaper, the Desert Sentinel, the post office, the public school. A lot of buildings burned, throughout that time period. And Coffee's bathhouse did burn down in 1947. He opened up a new one. Really important is the water company. When you start a city, the water company is one of the first projects that needs to go in. Methodist Church, street lights, Bank of America. We do lose Mr. Coffee in 1957. His bathhouse closes. And then 1963, we incorporate as a city. 1987, we've got the water district. Really important. In 1991, Coffee's bathhouse was demolished. I put a screenshot of the video that Mr. Hunt, who has also written a book here, he's one of the authors that we have for sale, filmed the demolishing of the bathhouse. If you go onto our website, you will see many, many videos that we've posted on various historical activities. So I urge you to go on the website. We also will be debuting a new website very soon. And Judy has been working very hard on putting that website together. So it will be everything you need for Desert Hot Springs history. Okay, so it was the first commercial bathhouse, 120 feet long. There were separate men's and women's facilities. That first night, they expected 500 people. They had over 2,000. So the people slept and camped in their cars. Mr. Coffee's P.O. Box was number 41. And then our analysis of water came out. We had very good results from water analysis with all the various elements there for you. Mr. Coffee writes, "These given curative hot mineral waters, so long hidden beneath the sands of the desert, waiting for the time to arrive when suffering humanity could enjoy nature's benefits of the wealth and health." At that time, there were over 200 spas that were working in Desert Hot Springs. I just have a couple of, we talked about artwork. We have a collection of Coffee postcards that are done by artists here in the archives. I want to share a couple of them with you. So this is the inside, the artist rendering of the inside of the bathhouse, the outside of the bathhouse. These are individual tubs on the side that you can, soak if you have ailments, or just if you like to soak. I think there's one more. So there's the inside courtyard, and that's a real picture of what Coffee's construction looked like. Then we have 2 bunch palms. So the first sightings of two-bunch palms, as written of in Our Araby, which is a book by Mr. Smeaton Chase. It's thought of as a very authentic description of the way Palm Springs was at that time. In 1857, the Palm Springs horseback riders knew that Two Bunch Palms was marked by two palms, and it was a great place to rest and find water, which was really important if you were out there. In 1864, Smeaton Chase writes, Two Bunch Palms is a double group of palms picturesquely placed on a bench at the foot of the hills, 3 or 4 miles north of Seven Palms. So it was a horseback ride, a day trip from Palm Springs at that time. So that was what it was, Two Bunch. It was a bunch of palms. And then in 1909, the U.S. Army Camel Corps of Engineers also reported it as being there and being surveyed. A resort did not happen until 1940. Lots of things were happening in 1940 in Desert Hot Springs. So Two Bunch Palms has a lot of wives' tales, a lot of stories told about it. In another group, I was asked to research specifically those stories, and so I'm going to report to you on the facts. Journal entries go back as far as 1840s, talking about looking for the two palms to find water on your journey. It is a 600-year-old natural spring. It's where Miracle Hill's two tectonic plates meet. It's got hot and cold mineral springs, and we do have lithium-rich water here in this area, and it's very therapeutic. And more mineral springs exist in Desert Hot Springs than anywhere in the U.S. And very few of them have hot and cold. And again, Two Bunch was a spa in 1940. That is one of the advertisements. I think that was in the Villager magazine, which is Palm Springs Historical Society. Another good place to find the facts. So also Carrie Berman, who will be our speaker for our soup supper in April, knows a lot about Two Bunch Palms. He took me on a tour of Two Bunch. He will tell you that the Cahuilla lived there for over 8,000 years. Everything that you need to survive is on that property. Out of the plants, just 5 plants, Native Americans used those plants for food, clothing, building supplies, medicine, as you heard last month, utensils, pottery, baskets, and more. The water ranges from 138 to 150, and it is the San Andreas Fault is beneath it. So the water percolates from Mount San Gorgonio through granite rocks to Desert Hot Springs aquifers, and that is courtesy of Carrie Berman. Ask him more, or we have his book for sale here. So also Mr. Hunt has written a book, and we have that book here as well. In 1940, the Bureau of Land Management opened Two Bunch Palms to private owners, the opportunity for that. They placed it on auction. An attorney, remember that name, by the name of Tom Lips, bought 1,100 acres, but he died prematurely, so the resort was sold again. I want to talk to you about Thomas Lips for a minute. So when I was asked to research the card rooms in Cathedral City, Mr. Lips' name came up. So the brothers Al and Lou Wertheimer owned what was called the Dunes Club, which was a card room and more in Cathedral City, kind of where the Amazon store is now. And the name Tom Lips came up because as I was paging through newspaper articles, I saw that Tom Lips was the attorney for Mr. Wertheimer. So that's how his name comes up in through our organization. I checked with Historical Society Director Renee Brown. She assured me that there are some really great newspaper articles that can give you the facts. I'm bird walking a little bit because I'm talking about authentic research for history. We are that authentic research location for Desert Hot Springs. If you have a wives' tale that you want to research, please come and talk to us about it and we'll help you find out. So the path to research involves a lot of newspaper articles. And I just want to give you one more,
I like this one.
it's okay, yeah, one more back there. So this is a wonderful free service. The UCR Center has scanned newspapers as far back as they've got them. And that's where I could find that this individual, this Cathedral City individual, was connected to this Thomas Lips person. So I encourage you to do your research and use the organizations that are offering really great information now. And back to Two Bunch. So Mayor Frank Bogart, you guys know that name? Mayor for a long, long time in Palm Springs. Also apparently was a kind of an amateur cowboy actor, according to my dad. So he also did not see any evidence of buildings until the 1940s. And where I'm going with that is that people ask me, well, was Al Capone at Two Bunch? Some people believe he owned it. But the fact of the matter is, it was never purchased by Al Capone. He was convicted in 1931 of tax evasion. He was in Alcatraz he was sentenced to 11 years. He was let out early because he had an ailment, and probably based on his lifestyle. And so he died in 19... So he died... So keep on going. But so that's a wives' tale that I was happily able to be participatory in debunking, although it was not my research that found all that out. There are many, many Desert Sun articles on that reality. So in truth, Two Bunch Palms, 1936 is when that water report came out and the curative effects of the water. Tom Lips tried to come in and purchase it, but he didn't do that well. Now, this is a report through a couple of books, which, Marge, we haven't necessarily been able to confirm some of the roulette table rumors. So this is another unconfirmed rumor that there was a roulette table, private card rooms. That also is what some of the other card rooms, the Cathedral City card rooms, the Palm Springs card rooms had in them. So, it's a possibility, we just don't know. There is an underground bathhouse. I have seen the pictures. But those pictures are kept, it's hard to track that one picture down. There was an underground bathhouse there, and it is still there. It's not well traveled, I hear. We can't confirm the underground tunnel. We can't confirm some of the rumors, but we know for a fact that Al Capone, to the best of our ability, didn't ever visit. But we do know in 1960, a husband and wife bought the property. She cooked the food, he performed the massage, and it continued on as a spa. And of course now it is a very elite spa with a very interesting history all its own, which we can talk about at another time. Really, so we've got the entrepreneur Coffee, who came in with his spa and his restaurant. We have Two Bunch Palms, which was also that, but had a lot of rumors of the illegal kind of entrepreneurs. Making the money the way they make their money. Now here's Angel View. Angel View is an entrepreneurial endeavor from the heart. It was for to help our polio patients with the strategies that they had employed. So this is a much different kind of entrepreneur. This is Ms. Hibbert's interview. She talks a little bit about Angel View and her memories of Angel View. Nicole has put this interview together with her skills, and Jill's information. So we're gonna hear just a couple of minutes of Jill talking about Angel View.
Angel View is a children's hospital, purple children's hospital that was started here in Desert Hot Springs by a doctor. I have the newspaper clippings on that I will share with the Historical Society that would take in crippled children. The families just could not take care of them. They had no other place to go because they had so much need to be cared for because of their afflictions were so tremendous. And so this hospital was started, and it's still here. The original one's still here, and it's still functional to some extent. And the Rotary was very active in sponsoring and taking care of it. And then what was the Pied Pipers Women's Club, that was very active in fundraisers and helped to raise money. And that time when Palm Springs was the Hollywood scene, people would come here. So many movie stars would volunteer their time for fundraisers. They used to have great parades down Palm Springs, and they would ride on the Angel View floats purposely to draw attention. And now these kids now grow up and they still need to be taken care of. So there's now here in Desert Hot Springs probably 8 houses at least that these children that are now adults move to and are still cared for, and they take in 3 or 4 of these adults now and care for them the rest of their life. But it's sad how many of these kids almost are like dropped off by their families, and they never came to visit much because it was such a heartache, for them. But as a kid growing up, I would go with my mom and the youth groups, and we would go and visit with the kids and try to interact with them. And we'd all leave there going very sad, but we tried to cheer up while we were there.
Okay, and I think that's it, yes?
Yeah. Let me just get you back to that.
And she's better looking in person.
Thank you, Jill, yes.
She's sitting right there.
Jill is actually with us today. Raise your hand, Jill.
Hi, everyone.
And she has so much more to tell us. Okay.
So the Angel View Angel, you can see on the side of the mountain, San Jacinto. So please do, when you're out hiking, take a look at that mountain and look for that angel shape that is looking over Desert Hot Springs. And I was struck at Dr. Robert Bingham's ideas on how the desert was back in those days. It was a very healthy. It was a place that people sent their people that were ailing, that were not healthy. Robert Bingham says that you don't see a lot of dust in those days. You don't see a lot of pollens, pesticides, herbicides. The air is clearer. The altitude is favorable. It's about 900 feet here. The pool is very warm. And he felt that it increased your blood flow through your body, and then going back and forth between the heated water and the cooling water was his strategy, one of his strategies to ail in that pain. He also was for diet and vitamin supplements. So the desert's changed a little bit now with our pollens. I was really struck at the level of philanthropy that goes on in Angel View. It was as if the whole community picked them out and took them where they needed to go. There was, I didn't mean to say groundbreaking ceremony, but that was the groundbreaking ceremony. President Eisenhower, gave his fame and attention to the matter along with all sorts of other stars. Clark Gable is in one of the pictures. There were ice cream socials, thrift shop fashion shows, a car dealership gave them a new car, and celebrity endorsements, including local celebrities. If you know Palm Springs, Zadie Bunker, she was the female that had the car repair shop in Palm Springs. She was also a pilot. and she did a promotion for them. So it really it was another entrepreneurial endeavor that was for a good cause. That was the nonprofit side of things. The community supported them. So this is Zadie Bunker. She flew in on her Cessna. She flew to San Diego. She did a show. This car dealership picked her up in this car. They donated the car. So entrepreneurship is also about nonprofits and our community lifting us up. Last one, just a quick look at B-Bar H Ranch. This was in the Dude Ranch tradition, which was very popular back in those days. This is an ad, I think, either for the Desert Sun or for newspapers far and wide, bringing people into the Coachella Valley. So this was a movie mogul, Lucian Hubbard. He was a professional writer, a war correspondent. He wrote for the Reader's Digest as well. And I will let you take a look at your new purchase from our bookstore, to take a look at the list of celebrities very long list of celebrities that did visit and stay at B-Bar H Ranch. Couple of them, I will just mention: Mary Pickford, Bing Crosby. A lot of them, you'll see their names that have visited throughout the valley. And this really famous picture, which is also in here, is Peter Lorre, the actor, and he is posing on his horse for their photograph. So they purchased the land from the Southern Pacific Land Company. And it was open to the public in '37, so right around that 1940s time again. The desk clerk and bell picked up guests at the train station on Garnett. They took them to the resort. There's the resort pool. That's the resort restaurant. There were also some games and slot machines at the ranch, so that was okay. But they also took guests gambling at the private membership Al Wertheimer's Dunes Club in Cathedral City. So we're back to the Dunes Club in Cathedral City. There were also picnics and campfires and midnight hay rides, and they went to places. They visited Bubbling Wells. They visited Cabot's place on Miracle Hill. And where was it? 18th to 20th Streets and Bubbling Wells to Mountain View. So this was the 1946 coaster that took people places. It took guests gambling, and then it took people places that they drove to in cars. They also did horseback rides. So these are the books, and these are $20 a piece. We sell them here, and we do retain a profit, so every little bit helps. These are $5. This is L.W. Coffey's story. So please see us after if you would like to purchase a book. I want to introduce you to Irene Rodriguez Director, Cabot's Pueblo Museum. She's going to talk to you about Cabot's little known facts.
Okay. Give her a big hand.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending this history talks. It's been really fascinating. Thank you for sharing all those information, MJ. So a couple of things that I want to share about Cabot Yerxa. He did come in the 30s again to fill his Pueblo, and he dug into the hillside. Something that, as in MJ's presentation, was that the city was incorporated in 1963. Cabot and 3 other individuals were opposed for that incorporation of it. And we do have a document in our collection that they wrote to the Senatel opposing for that. But we're glad that it's incorporated, and we get some really benefits from the city as residents and business and museums. So that. Another thing, we have a book based as MJ said, UCR has all the newspapers sort of department scanned, and it also has it of the Desert Sanatel that started in 1941, and it was purchased by the Desert Sun in 1971. It was a weekly newspaper, and Cabot had his column on the desert since 1913. And in Wonders column, he wrote how upset he was that people just drove to the desert, really smelling the air, really getting in touch with the desert. One other thing that he also had with him, and I tried to also share this with our visitors, he always had a bandana. Because a bandana, you could use it, especially when it's windy here in the area. You could cover your face with and protect it from the wind. You could wet it and put it around your neck to really cool off during the hot temperatures. You could use it as a sling as well, so in case you got hurt. But one thing that I just found this week was a script. So somebody came and filmed the different spots from Oakland to Beaumont to Cabazon to Desert Hot Springs. Do you want to pull out the letter? This is a little letter that Cabot received, and he received the script of it, and I'm going to read portions of it for you, not everything.
I have to take it out of.
Yeah. So you have to get it from there and then it's your. And it was filmed in 1955.
I'm sorry. There we go.
There it is. It's the Bill Byrne production. He receives this in December the 16th, and then on Cabot, his P.O. Box is 7 here in Desert Hot Springs. So here's the part of the script I'm going to read for it, and it goes, "Tonight, the wheels of Wanderlust take you first to Oakland, where some of the world's biggest and juiciest apples are grown and harvested. After that, we will see a reenactment by Cabot Yerxa of his amazing story of how he was the first white man to come to this barren desert back in 1913. And how he built his historical 4-story Indian Pueblo over a period of 15 years. We began our trip of Wanderlust tonight by driving along US Highway 60. Yeah, Highway 60. Okay. At Desert Hot Springs, we came across the man and the house which day by day are becoming increasingly important in California history. The man is Cabot Yerxa, famous desert artist and pioneer, and the place is his fabulous self-made Pueblo in the desert. Yerxa has spent over 15 years building this Indian Pueblo in a little canyon on his homestead east of Desert Hot Springs. As an incredible building, Yerxa himself has written, "There's no place just like this place, anywhere near this place, so this must be the place." In addition to the cure shop where Mrs. Yerxa sells and explains the various collections she and her husband have gathered, the building contains approximately 35 rooms, 140 windows, 65 doors, and 30 different room levels. It is built against a mountain, mostly on 3 floors, with 1 room on the 4th floor. So Yerxa felt it was his duty to construct an Indian Pueblo right here on his desert, the only one in California. And it continues to describe the Pueblo where thousands of Californians, ever since 1951, where the Pueblo was open to the public, have gone on personally conducted tours to the building, the art gallery, and the museum. And it'd be very difficult to believe that the space that Ms. Yerxa is showing us is where the bed is. They're describing the bedroom in the Cabot had in the Pueblo itself. Today, at the age of 73, he has received his due acclaim. However, it wasn't always so with this hardy pioneer, especially in a day when he's reenacting for us, now when he first came to this land and decided to homestead. That was back in 1913, when he was already 32 years old. So Cabot was also traveling along. He, at the age of 16, the wanderlust spirit enthralled him, and he ran away from home to join the gold rush in Alaska. And from there, he continued one adventure after another until he finally settled at Desert Hot Springs. Always interested in the desert and Indian subject, he finally decided that this was the place for him to settle down and do his work. And because of his ideal climate conditions and the discovery of the beneficial hot mineral water, the one worthless desert land around Yerxa homestead has now developed into a booming resort town. People from all over the country and the world come here to take advantage of the sun and the health-giving water from the hot mineral waters. So this is just a script, and as you can tell, that I just want to clarify a little things. I don't think he was the first white man that came in 1913, even though it was the script that was said. Another one, he did go to Alaska. He asked his father at the age of 15 if he could go to Loma, Alaska. His father said no. And when he asked again at 16, his father said, well, if you say yes, or else he's gonna go along. Just imagine going to Loma, Alaska in the 1900s at the age of 16 years old for that. And I want to end, like, he really made Desert Hot Springs his home, and that's what I also share with the visitors, that he traveled the world all over the place, and he came to Desert Hot Springs to make his home. So this is just a little more tidbits. There's more we want, and we could share it at the Cabot's Photo Museum.
Thank you so much, Irene. So interesting, and please go up to Cabot's if you haven't been there yet, or if you've been there, you've got to return. I know I've got to go again. I want to take that tour again. And I would like to introduce you again to Nicole Maury, and she's going to tell you all about what she does well.
Thank you so much, MJ, for having me and just listening to your presentation and Irene's. It's even more so why I'm very committed about getting the stories of a relative, a grandmother, a mom. And so I did put together, I've got a little mini class that I do online called Get Relative 10 Magical Life Story Questions. I will admit that my questions may not be so magical in terms of, they're maybe a little more basic, but it's the magic happens as it did with my mother and me, that when you really sit down and get some of the stories behind photographs, all the photo albums, that there's so much more that even an adult child does not know about their own parent. And that's something that I'm very, very committed to making sure that a lot of families have that as part of an archive. Photo albums are really being displaced now by iPhone footage, all of that. And my little mini class does go into how to preserve all of that, capture and preserve all of that. Ideally, for me, generations matter. I think that it's very, very important in this whole age of social media, AI, all of that, to get an authentic story that is part of a family archive besides just the photograph. So with that, a lot of them, maybe a younger, it could be an adult child, could be grandchildren. It was basically asking, who was your mom or a grandparent before you knew them. And so much of what's happening with younger people being so completely immersed in social media, there's, in my opinion, a slight little detachment that's going on. And I think it's very, very important to have those face-to-face conversations, and that's where the magic happens. So they can become a little bit of an accidental archivist with their own relative. They can go beyond the photo albums, get into the stories, the thoughts, the emotions at the time. Can you go back? I'm sorry, okay, yeah, there, okay, and then, okay, so then we'll go forward. Yeah, go ahead. One more, okay. So, yeah, so the whole idea for me is to not make this an arduous process. I think there's a lot of books out there that a lot of people, adult children will give a senior parent, they'll say, can you write your life story out? Some people are terrific at that, some people are not. So getting those conversations and getting the either audio of it or video, I'm not suggesting that anybody has to become a big film producer, but it's just something that part of the archive of a family archive could have the audio and ideally visual. When a little toddler can hear a great grandparent's voice and see them, all of that when they're older, wow, it's so fun. And especially when they hear about the radical stories of a great grandparent, which maybe weren't so radical as they could be today. Okay. There was a British director named Michael Apted. I think he's passed away now, and he said, give me the boy at 7 and I'll give you the man. And basically what he did a series of documentaries, 7 Up, 14 Up, 21 Up, 35 Up. Every 7 years he captured the same group of kids. This was in England, and he captured them at 7 years old, stating what they wanted to be, what their aspirations were, and it was absolutely fascinating to watch by 21 how some of these people literally went off the rails and became so disconnected from what they really wanted as a child, but then many of them came back. By 35 up, 42 up, they had come back to who they were as a 7-year-old. And that's something that, to me, when you ask a great-grandparent or a grandparent, what were some of your aspirations at 7 years old? It's a very simple question, but it also can inform what somebody was doing later in a career, that type of thing. Okay? And time travel, again, very basic question, but I keep going back to, what do the younger generations, what do they want to hear in terms of a great grandparent or a grandparent or a great aunt? Next. Okay, and then to keep things light, who made you laugh uncontrollably? Day in the life, again, 7, 14, 21. And again, I always say that something can be a very simple memory. It doesn't have to be a very complicated memory, but it is something that maybe informs a young grandchild that, maybe a specific, that's when a relative got very interested in animals versus maybe they were an introvert and they weren't very interested in people, something like that. Okay. And the neighborhood. The neighborhood to me is very important because it's that external environment, but then there's also an internal environment going on inside of each person, of each child. And so how they interacted with that neighborhood, what was so special about it. And again, I think that, you know, in this room, I think that everybody can has some probably pretty strong memories of very special neighborhoods, and partly because you might have lived in them longer than maybe the families do today. So, but I still think it's really important that the younger generation get to hear it. The next one, historical events, what a relative, an aunt, a great aunt might think, feel, behave, believe differently about a historical event that might have been different than their own parents, maybe how they were brought up, but then inside, or you know, they had a little bit of a different outlook on things, and how you can share that with some of the younger generation. And there may be some really fun facts on that about, oh, I didn't know that you were maybe a little bit more, had a certain feeling about that. I didn't mean for this to be right after the LA fires. I'm from LA for 4 years, but it really is more along the lines of personality. And also it really talks about, I said, if you were a natural disaster, what would you be and why? And it's also about getting the, some of the characters. There's always some characters in any family, and to talk about what kinds of personalities, it's a kind of a fun question to talk about, getting the personalities of different family members. Okay, sink or swim moments, and that could be whether it's a love life, a career, something like that, but how did that particular relative handle that particular situation in those moments? And again, I'm going to keep going back to, that's what the younger generation needs to hear, how something was handled back then, and maybe it was handled in the same way it would be today. A radical you of an appearance, taking action, crashed a wedding, jumped in the Venice canals, hopefully not. What did that person do? What did that relative do that was good, bad, or ugly? And again, this is not to get into deep therapy, nothing like that. It's more about what are some of those really fun family stories that can be passed along. Go. And I am a kooky aunt to some of my nieces and nephews, but they enjoy that. There could be all kinds of characters in the family, and what was the impression of the younger self. So if I take this room and I look at all of you and I say, I'm talking to all of you and you're 15 years old, you're all sitting here 15 years old, you are going to have some impressions of some of your family members, and how can you talk to a 15-year-old granddaughter or a nephew today and say, this is what I thought? And again, not to stir up family drama, but just getting some of those really rich, fun perceptions. My mini class does go into digital and manual capturing of life stories. One of the things that I'm really keen on, besides just getting the content, is preserving the content. And again, I do a lot of organizing jobs besides working with life story, producing, all of that. I see everything in terms of people have things going back literally 70 years, you know, how they've kept things, you know, whether it's paper or over time, all how digital has changed. So I think it's very, very important to capture things, and then to also make sure that it is in a digital format safety deposit box, all kinds of suggestions I can make so that that can then be passed along and not ruined in a fire or a flood. So why does any of this matter? Your family matters, your family generations matter. You're getting to know a loved one before you knew them and in a completely different